Yeah, that's right. This is the Changing Stage radio show turned into a video TV show. I'm so used to saying radio show. And this is the music industry big picture. I'm here with Jeff Weber. For those folks that are joining to see Bunny will be coming on at 11. So this is a double. It's a double header here today, and
feature.
Double feature. There we go. I was going baseball, right? Before I get started, I just want to give a big shout out to our good friends over at Artesia Pro. They're supplying all the microphones. Jeff's microphone, my microphone here in the studio. And this is an awesome day because we're going live in our virtual arena here today, and I guess we got a bunch of folks in there. I'm going to be looking. That's why I have my phone here. I'm going to be doing some follow up with the questions. So feel free to shoot questions. We'll be taking them there as we go along, and we're going to be talking about the music industry today. We're going to talk a little bit about what's going on with all of these reality competition shows. We're going to talk a little bit about touring. We're going to kind of touch on a few different things. And my guest, Jeff Weber, is a phenomenal talent in the business. He's had multiple Grammy albums, working with folks from Sarah Vaughan to Nancy Wilson to even, I think that I'm using the Wikipedia page, so hopefully I get this right. You're Jennifer Love Hewitt at some point, so you've worked with a bunch of folks. You've had many Grammys, some platinum classics, and you've thrown concerts. You've done TV shows. Renaissance man for sure. Decades in the business. Mr. Jeffrey Weber, welcome to the Changing Stage show and the EnterTalk Media Network.
I am super happy to be here. Thank you very much, Tino. Thank you for honoring me, Artesia. Thank you so much for supplying me with such great gear. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here.
Awesome. Well, thank you, sir. And, for those folks that are tuning in, we went a little bit later in the game because we ended up having a little bit of a internet issue. So just FYI, make sure you kind of keep that in mind. We got it cleared up. But with that said, Jeff, let's kind of jump into it, man. You've been in this business for a number of years, and you've seen it grow. The dynamics. Let's just start off with the state of the industry. I know that's actually a big ask right now. What is your opinion? We're COVID right now, or in and out, depending on who you talk to. If we're getting right back into another series of it, where are we at? What's your opinion of where we're at right now in the music industry?
Well, in terms of the COVID-19 virus that's affected most musicians, most creators drastically. A lot of us have seen all of our gigs, all of our everything that we do go up in smoke. So the notion of people getting together for live shows, people getting together for even playing together live is difficult. And I don't think that it's going to get any better before the end of the year. However, one thing that we know about creatives, the one thing that we know about people in the music industry is that we are resilient. This is our passion. This is our blood. So there will be stopping us. Actually, in a time of turmoil, there is great opportunity. And I think that you've seen online the plethora of live events, if you will, the fact that Zoom has now become a household word and a technology that people use to get together. I know that once everything simmers down to the point where we can actually get together, there's going to be a craving for people to do just that together, both and with each other.
Awesome. Hey, I'm gonna ask Josh to do a simple thing. Can you drop Jeff's right click on his image there and drop it down to the next level? Because you're chopping up there a little, Jeff. So we're losing you. The days of the internet.
How's my audio?
Your audio sounds good, but you were chopping in and out. So we do this thing
That's
on the
okay.
fly, guys. This is all live, so please bear with us. This is our first inauguration and launching of the virtual room. So I really appreciate you guys having patience with us. So, there is opportunity, Jeff, in this arena. And I want to encourage all of my fellow musician brother and sisters that take heart that there's a lot of possibilities and opportunities. One of the things I've seen grown quite a bit, and we're going to be helping facilitate that. In fact, tonight we're going to be doing a virtual concert from our good friends over at Juan Tequila's down in the Gaslamp of San Diego. So tune in. We're going to be broadcasting on their channel, but that opportunity now has opened up for people to be able to reach their audiences on a very, very regular basis. So tell me a little bit about how they can explore these opportunities more in this time when it seems that things are a little bit of a challenge and some people can say hopeless because and forgive me for going on, the fragility of income with performing live it became very apparent in this day and age. So tell me about your thoughts on how to maximize in this current time opportunities.
For musicians, it's a little bit different than producers like myself, but for musicians, there's the collaborative component of music where you typically do tracks in your home studio and send them along to others who are creating songs or others who are creating some sort of virtual concert, if you will. As you can see, there's tons of those. The income stream, though, remains to be seen. It's very minimal. I'm actually launching a new company that will provide tracks for musicians all over the world, and those tracks will be created by the elite musicians of our time, both session musicians and touring musicians, and people who are outside of New York or Los Angeles or Florida or Atlanta, would be able to go on a dedicated site that we're creating and have the opportunity to select tracks from recognized instrumentalists and use them and pay a very small fair fee. And then, for example, you'll be able to share a track that you have that features musicians like Rhonda Smith, for example, on bass, who currently is the bass player with Jeff Beck and has come to fame, well, of course, with her playing with Prince. But musicians of that caliber.
Yeah. So is it easy for just anybody to just jump on this? Can people contribute songs? I mean, Rhonda Smith obviously is a a well-established name, but somebody who has a great song but hasn't achieved any notoriety, can they also be able to participate in this offering?
There are other sites like Splice and other sites where people like that can go on. What we're trying to do here is offer tracks that have been created by world-renowned musicians, and that's our separator, is that we're not selling the notes, because, as you know, if you're a music student or a player, you can copy the notes. We're selling the feel, we're selling the vibe, we're selling the emotion. And using Rhonda as an example, there's only one Rhonda Smith, so that's what we're selling. There's only one Greg Bissonette. There's only one Tara Cacconi, and these people have already signed up with us. So we're on our way to kind of mine my relationships and try to create something. But in the meantime, I am very aggressively pursuing my love of recording music with real musicians playing real music in real time. I have a record scheduled right now, a Christmas project with a young vocalist from the San Francisco area in August, and another vocalist who has had some fame in years past for September. and a live 2-track jazz recording in New Orleans in October. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm keeping busy. I have a new book that's coming out. It's called You Sound Amazing, Every Single Lie of the Music Business. It's published by Headline Books in West Virginia, and it's an assemblage of stories and anecdotes and general nonsense. And of course, there is a way to get the actual true benefit from that book, and that is to keep it right by your bathroom.
There you go.
All the good stuff starts there.
It's hugely humorous, from what I understand. I haven't read it yet, folks, but I'm really looking forward to it. In fact, you can buy the book not the new coming book, but the the current book there is on right there, a link below. So those are ways for you guys to engage. In fact, make sure you enter to win the microphone that Jeff is using. I'm using the AMC 10 right now to kind of show the line, and then there's the AMC 20 by our good friends over at Artesia. So make sure you enter that link. In fact, I might even get Josh in the control room there to put up an image of it. So you enter to win that particular mic, as well as also buy Jeff's current book, which is You've Got a Deal. So those are my shameless plugs right now for all the folks that help support this. So forgive me, folks, but it's all good stuff. And in fact, now that we've got the internet on tame for Jeff, you're sounding amazing. And, with that said, you're also going to be launching a coffee to go along with the new book. So tell us a bit about the coffee. I believe it's an Italian roast. Is that correct?
It's going to be really terrific. My wife is a coffee addict. I make coffee for her every morning, and she loves dark roast coffee. So I am thrilled to have the ability to have a promotional item such as this bag of extraordinary beans. We grind our own beans here, so to retain the freshness and the spirit of the dark roast, and I'm looking forward to it. So the idea is, in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, get yourself a cup of Joe, and read this book out loud to somebody that you don't like.
There you go.
They'll love you.
And you'll laugh because there's so many fun things. There's so many fun things to go with that. So now, with that said, in your books, you've often addressed people's fascination with these reality shows that supposedly make stars out of people. Like, well, I won't mention any names, but people know them. They're usually the big ones that have come down the pipeline. You have an aversion to those shows, if I'm not correct, because you've worked with a lot of those people that have come out of there, and you've seen some big challenges for them to further their careers. Tell us a bit about that.
Sure. I think it's first important to note that every show is an individual business. And like every business, there is a business plan, there is a business model. And the design of most businesses is to make money for those who created and participate in that business. So with that being said, things occur that will assist those producers, if you will, in making money. Now, the reason why I have such an aversion to those shows is that I'm an artist guy. I'm a record producer, and my clients are everything to me. They're family, and I like to take care of them. I have clients on every one of those shows, and I do the deals. And I have a law degree too, so I do a lot of different things for my clients, and one of them is to understand just what's going on in order to make the playing field level for my clients. For example, I'll just jump right in, Tino. So, okay, there's a show called Songland, which is really interesting for songwriters, and it features three great songwriter / producers as they evaluate the songs from 4 different singers in hopes that one of them will strike the fancy of their weekly guest, which is either an individual or a group. So the four singers come and sing their songs in front of those four people. One of them is kind of let go simply not because the song is bad per se, but it just doesn't fit within whatever reason the artist is looking for. Maybe it's the wrong tempo, maybe it's the wrong lyric content, maybe it's not the genre correct. So the three others are then moved on to the next level where they work individually with each one of those producers. So one songwriter is assigned to one producer. Come back, they sing their songs, the artist that is interested picks the winning song. Why? It's actually, you can learn a lot, but the tragedy of this is the winning songwriter has to give up 100% of the income that that song would generate in perpetuity.
That's crazy. That's great. I thought that was illegal. I thought you're not supposed to get. You can get the publisher share, but you can't get the songwriter share. So, how do they get around that?
They just sign a contract. You know, there's no rules that say that the songwriter has to retain his interests. So, in order to get on the show, you have to give up all income that the winning song would generate. But what's troublesome is that when the song does come out, every single one of those producers, as well as the artist himself or herself, is added as a co-writer to that song, and they receive the publishing income from that song, leaving the original songwriter basically out in the cold. Which begs the question, why would you ever do that? The myth of exposure? So it's tragic, and that's just one of the shows. For example, on The Voice, the winner is selected in the first episode. Okay. Why do I know that? It's because I have clients on the show that tell me that. The phrase America has voted is an absolute sham. On The Voice, for example, you can go to nbc.com/The Voice and put in your email address and have the ability to vote 10 times. You can contest it 10 times, or you can spread that around. Oh, wait. I have a work email address. I'm going to put that in there now. And let's see what happens. Well, sure enough, you've got 10 more votes. I had a client on the show. He had a friend in Brazil. He put in every single email address in his address book. Took him almost 2 days. He voted 23,000 times. Okay, so if you understand that that guy's voted 23,000 times, obviously other people are gaming the system too.
Yeah.
So the producers obviously know that, and though they're notoriously silent about that, again, there's another agenda here. And this is my opinion. Here's what I think is happening. At the end of the season, the producers of the show go to the network and they say, let's look at the analytics. As you can see, there's a tremendous uptick in engagements. Engagements being the operative word, not just signing up to be a friend or on Facebook or Instagram or anything like that. These are people that actually did something. So the show says to the network, look, because there's many people that are tuning in, we're going to charge you more for the show next year.
Yeah.
This is my opinion. So then the show goes to the advertisers and says, hey, let's look at the analytics. The analytics show that there's a major uptick in viewership. Therefore, we're going to charge you more for the spots. And the advertisers, basically say, okay. And the price of the products tends to inch up a little bit. So the agenda here, again, is making money. The contestants are in it to propel the business, but it's not in their interests to do so. The worst thing that could ever happen to a contestant on any one of these shows is to win. As you know, most contestants have to sign a record deal and a management deal before they even get on stage. So in the unlikely chance that they win, they basically are tied in. And spoken to some of the people, let's say on The Voice, and they're some of the attorneys, and they say, well, look, we don't we don't make any money off these people. We just like the show. So they don't put much effort into the product. The management companies do less than nothing for the winners. And even though they'll argue with me until the cows come home, I worked with one of the winners of America's Got Talent. He had to buy his way out of the management deal, even though the management company didn't do anything for him. He was smart enough to hire his own manager. And, I mean, the stories like this are endless, and it's debilitating. The shows are 100% controlled. And ask yourself the question: America has voted. Do you think that the producers of the show would trust the outcome of one of their shows to the public at large? No, not a chance. So that's just the beginning. So if you understand that, how tightly they control. As a matter of fact, on one of the shows, there was a clause in the contract that says that even after the show is over, the artist would be unable to do any type of live performances unless they received permission in writing from the show. In advance.
I've worked with a few of them myself, and I'm not going to name any names. Obviously, we want to call anybody out. But interesting enough, I found that the artist that I'm thinking of basically wasn't your middle America, type of artist. They didn't have the typical pop kind of sensibility. So the producers tried to route them into that direction. And it didn't work for them. But they did say one thing came out of it, and you can tell me if this makes sense. They said that their social media and their following and their fans, they were able to generate enough to at least start to build a career from there, because they had focused so much on being an artist that all of that element of the career kind of took a back seat before, and now it helped jumpstart that arena for them. What's your thoughts on that?
Social media is crucial to visibility for any artist or any author or any entertainer or anybody, really. The issue is the attention span of the person who's engaged in that. As you know, it's quite small. So with, let's say, The Voice, for example, I have a client on The Voice. We did a record before The Voice, and it shot up to number one on the iTunes chart. As a matter of fact, we had 5 to, I think, of the 10 singles for that week, and it was fantastic for a blink of an eye. And the key to being visible is to be on the show every week. So if you're on shows where you go through rounds and you're not on every week, you basically have to start over every single week or other week to let people know that you're going to be on the show, to tune in, to vote, etc. My client came in at number 4 on The Voice, which was terrific. He got on the final show but didn't win, thank goodness, and was able to kind of harness that visibility for a very, very short time. And of course, he didn't really need The Voice to begin with. He was a very successful vocalist / guitar player / songwriter out of Ann Arbor, Michigan, and he's still doing that. He's still amazing, but there was a kind of a bad taste, And, what was great about it was that at one point there was 2 major labels interested in him. And the deals were so horrible. I'll just say this. I'll just tell you this quick story. The deals were so horrible that everyone that he talked to convinced or tried to convince him to walk away. And his comment was, listen, I know the deal is horrible. I know the terms are horrible. I know the money is horrible. I know the royalty is horrible. It's dehumanizing. However, there is a possibility to your question, Tino, that I might be able to get a certain level of exposure that will stabilize my career when I'm dropped.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it's a new level of conversation that you use the social media aspect or the visibility that you might get on a show or a major label to understand that you're going to be dropped, and how then you can use that to enhance your career once you do your own records. Oh, by the way, here's the PS to that story. The artist said, look, I don't mind. I'll live with everything that the negative. All I want is a one-time, 1-hour meeting with the marketing department so that I can coordinate my lives with what they're going to do with the record in terms of marketing. And the representative of the label said, are you kidding? We would do that anyway, and asked me just to write it up. I wrote up 2 sentences that says that, one time, 1-hour meeting with the marketing department, the artist would pay all of his own expenses to come to New York and sit with the marketing department for 1 hour. So I wrote it up. It came back to me that the label said that they couldn't guarantee that 1-hour meeting, but they would indeed put in the words best efforts. And as you and I know, best efforts is a scientific term that simply means, nope, it ain't going to happen, and we can't penalize it. We can't be penalized for it not to happen. So thankfully at that time, the artist left.
Yeah, yeah. No, understandably. So, you can't make it there. And I will say that folks, that if you think that these people that have millions and millions of views on YouTube as recording artists, unless you're doing originals and you own the rights to the songs, the money's not quite as lucrative as you'd think from the YouTube stuff. Example, I have somebody that I know that they've had millions of views, and I won't give out the numbers because it might say who it is, but at the end of the day, it broke down to around $15,000 a year in income on YouTube performances, because they did a lot of covers as well as some originals. You don't make that much. You make about 50 cents per 1,000 people that view your performances. So it's really tough out there right now to figure out how do you make income. And it was not easy, obviously, getting signed back in the day and getting a major label to put money behind you and become the next Prince or Foo Fighters or whoever you wanted to be. But it was a pretty certain direction that if you actually were able to make an impact and move in that direction, that there's a good chance that you had a strong career at becoming the rock star. So today is not quite the same way, and there are some things. We talked about licensing. Now you were talking about licensing for some fairly heavyweight players. Licensing for TV, sync licensing, video games, that's all a possibility. But what's your take on that arena about trying to generate revenue? Because I think that's really, not just our industry, but there's a big push for it in our industry. But I think in general, people are trying to figure out how they're going to be able to make an income in this current day and age. So in that direction, what do you think about licensing? You mentioned Splice and some of those other .coms that are out there. What's your take?
Well, I think licensing is crucial, and I think that everyone with a song or everyone with a series of songs wants to have their songs in television or movies. And so the rush to submit material to music supervisors, producers, and directors continues, and it's escalating. And I I have some sort of a tip about that. And imagine if you're a music supervisor and you receive 5 different tapes, 5 different, links to cues or songs that you might use in a movie or television, and they're all essentially the same. They're all saying, love scene on the beach, 60 beats per minute, and the duration of the song. Yeah. Here's a car crash scene. Here's a shower scene. Here's a dining scene. And so after a while, the music supervisor really is kind of overwhelmed. But what happens if instead of saying love scene, you have a creative title? You know, I had no choice but to go to my family reunion to pick up women.
Okay.
Somebody's going to want to hear that song. Or finally, I got the nerve to steal the card, and wouldn't you know, somebody hits me, but I'm rolling down the freeway ahead of the police. I want to hear that song. I want to hear that cue.
So you're saying
So
titling.
creative titling in a world where everybody is scampering for the same essential scenes gives the music supervisor something to smile at, something to look at, and the, the more
That's
creative
brilliant.
you are, somebody's going to say, "Oh, okay, this is the operating room scene,"
Yeah, yeah.
and the title is, I spilled my guts out on the floor literally, and now they're stuffing them back in. $2, 2 minutes, 30 seconds, right? So you're you're gonna, if just nothing but the novelty of that. But anyway, I have a story about licensing if you wanna hear about it, and how crucially important it is, and how it is not time dependent.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
can I
definitely.
spend a moment or two about that?
Yeah, definitely.
There is
Before you jump into it, we're gonna be closing out with that because we've got Bunny Brunell. Just want to remind everybody, Bunny Brunell's coming up at the top of the hour. We're gonna be a little bit past it as we got a little later start. Technical difficulties, but it's all good in this day and age of the internet and bringing things to people, instantaneously. So, with that said, Jeff, finish out with that thought.
this is how really wonderful licensing can be, and sometimes it's completely out of your control. Great keyboard player and performer that currently is with John Fogerty is Bob Malone. Bob travels around the world with his own show, and let me tell you, this guy is wonderful. He's a great songwriter and is a great keyboard, and has a long time history in the business. About 18 years ago, he did a cover of a song called "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch."
Okay.
Yet, in the wisdom of the major studios, the endeavor to find a brand new idea is escaping them. So they decided to do yet another movie called "The Grinch Who Stole Christmas." They were searching around the internet. The creatives were searching the internet, and they found a version of "You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch" that Bob Malone had recorded on one of his previous projects. Like I said, 18 years ago. And the reason they were intrigued by it is Bob can have a real gruff voice, just the Grinch was a real gruff character. And they asked him if he would be interested in having the track be used as part of the trailer. Not the movie, just the trailer. And so Bob called his manager in Washington and asked him to intercede, and his manager called me and asked me if I could do the deal. And I explained that one of these licensing deals takes less than 90 seconds, but it is time dependent. So I said I would do the deal under the following proviso: that I not ask you for permission, I don't discuss any terms, I sign the contract myself on your behalf, and everything that happens happens quickly. So I decided to call the Universal Licensing Department and introduce myself, telling them that I would be handling the licensing for that particular song. And I wanted to get them to understand my negotiating style. And so I talked to the head of licensing. Her name was Kathy. And I said, this is how to proceed. You ask me something, I say yes. We're done. Are we good? And I think obviously I took her off guard a little bit, but the notion behind that was to make her smile first, because I
Yeah.
knew if I could make her smile, then we would do great. So she said, okay, this is fantastic. I said, listen, what's Universal been known to pay for 7 seconds in a trailer of a Hollywood movie? And she said, well, we've been known to pay up to $20,000. Okay, parenthetically, I didn't know it at the time, but Bob would have been overjoyed with $1,500. So she asked if I could get with Bob and his manager to discuss how much they wanted. I said, sure, back at you shortly. Once we hung up, I sent her an email saying that we would prefer to have $27,500. And the email came back, listen, would you mind terribly if you could just go back to your client and see if they would accept 25,000. And I said immediately, listen, if it'll speed up the process, let's go. Okay, she was delighted. Okay, so Bob now is going to make 25 grand on this 7 seconds in the trailer. And she sent me another email saying that the creatives, those creatives again, had decided that they wanted to make the song bigger, so they added their own embellishments. They added horns and strings. Well, I was immediately concerned and started sweating because I can't imagine this being very good. I listened to it, and sure enough, one was very mediocre, the other was horrible. And I write back to her, fabulous, let's go. And of course, then I get an email from the manager saying, well, we see you've improved the embellishments. The artist, Bob, thinks that one of them is terrible and one of them is marginal. And I write back to the manager saying, he's absolutely right. You have a choice here. You can assert you're paid. Pick one. All right. So I told her everything is fine. She said, you're going to get our contract at the end of the week. Of course, I did the contract at the end of the week. So I wrote her a letter, an email saying, Dear Kathy, am I like the annoying little kid in the back seat that always is saying, are we yet? Are we there? And I'm writing this, are we there yet? All the way down the page. And at the last line, I said, where's my contract? So she was laughing, of course, and said, oh, my gosh, I'm really sorry. We'll figure out what's going on. And I respond to her, that would be great, because you see there's an article in the New York Times about the trailer for this movie. The marketing department had released the trailer already.
Oh, wow.
Without a co-signature, without a check. The reason is because the marketing department didn't or know what the licensing department was doing. They didn't know what the accounting department was doing. They didn't know what legal was doing. So because I had created in her a relationship, I said, look, the only way I'm going to get paid, since I lost my entire leverage, is for you to physically and get a check from accounting. It's the only way this is going to happen. And she said, okay, I'm going to do that for you. And she said, by the way, there's a couple of small opportunities outside of the license, different things. What would you want for them? I said, $12,500 each. And she said, would you take $5,000 each? I said, you bet. So we settled on one other opportunity. So now we're up to 30 grand. And after some back and forth on just the tax component of this thing, Bob Malone gets a check for $30,000.
Well, sync licensing, 30 grand. You got to do it. So we've got one last question. We were going to close out, but I want to give a shout out to Maurice, because he's been waiting patiently for his question. If you can make it a little shorter than we would most normally go on this, because it's a pretty loaded question. But the question is, what's your number one music promotion tip there, Jeff?
Live performances.
Yeah.
Nothing else matters other than creating a relationship with your listener. Live. And then thank them. Capture the data. Get to the web, get the email address of every single person in that show and thank them. Send them an individualized email thanking them, recognizing how important they are to the success of your career. Developing that relationship creates soldiers for you that last far longer than any social media post.
Yeah, amazing. I think that sums it up, folks. This is a day and age of engagement. You need to talk to people. You need to be accessible. You need to acknowledge them. You can't be that aloof recording artist anymore. People are people know so many people that have millions of views on YouTube, and they're YouTube famous or Facebook famous. But you need to be personally engaged with these people if you want to build, a real culture mover type of community. That's it.
Can I say one last thing?
Yeah, please do.
One last thing. A true fan only wants two things: access and exclusivity. If you as an artist can provide that to a fan, they will be yours forever.
Yeah, we're going to have more tips on this kind of stuff here in the very near future. We're going to be doing a series. In fact, Jeff, you're going to be launching a show. We're not going to tell you names or titles or tell you when just yet, but Jeff is going to actually be coming on to help guide people through all the craziness that is the music industry. So with that said, thank you again, Artesia Pro, for providing all the gear that we're using here. We are actually using their A22XT interface to connect us into the audio of the video. We've got the microphones that we're using. You're talking about doing live performances. This is one way to connect in to do live performances from your home, because we're not out there having large audiences yet. So stay tuned. Bunny Brunell will be right up here at the top of the hour. We're going to try to bring him in as soon as possible. It's our first foray into this, so I appreciate you guys bearing with us in trying to provide information, resources, and cool people like Jeff to be able to bounce your questions off of and to get your information. EnterTalk has just launched its new web portal, so you can go in there. In fact, Jeff's going to be doing a forum where you can ask him questions about the music industry, where he'll be responding back to you. So you can check out the forum, check out other parts of the website. There are topics, guitar player topics, there are bass players, DJs, recording engineers, so much. We've got thousands of interviews that we've done, plus we've got some great partners like Hudson Music that are providing some cool content. So please engage us. Let us know what your thoughts are on our Facebook page, EnterTalk, facebook.com/EnterTalk, EnterTalk Official on Instagram for those folks that are watching on Instagram. You already know that, but if you're not, you can go there. And stay tuned, because we've got another episode coming up right after this with the amazing bass master, Bunny Brunell. So with that said, Josh, take us out with the close, and stay tuned in the next 10-15 minutes.
Thanks, Tino.
You're welcome, sir.